Hey guys, Thunder E here, and we are back again taking a look at the LG G40 from a professional photographer's perspective.
Hello.
Yes. So the last time we took a look at the V40 and we took a look at the photos with the JPEG. Now, just to let you guys know, finding the settings for the RAW files is not as straightforward. You do have to go into the Pro mode and go into the settings while you're in Pro mode to do that. So it's not in just the general camera settings when you turn the camera on. So basically to shoot RAW, you must shoot in Pro to get RAW files. Now that being said though, you take a look at the V40's JPEGs, which you guys can go check out that video. Yeah. And what do you think about the JPEGs?
I was not a big fan of the JPEGs. I think it was probably the image processing, and now I think we were looking at the RAW files compared to the JPEGs now, and we were figuring out that it was mainly the image processing that, for my perspective, destroyed them a little bit.
Yeah, so without any further rambling around, because we could probably go on forever, let's take a look at the RAW files from the LG V40.
Let's do it. Actually, what I did earlier was I looked at the photos, a few photos that I took with the Huawei P20 earlier this year, just so to basically confirm that I'm not going crazy. As I mentioned before, the files that are coming out of this phone are very nice to look at on a mobile phone's screen, but they are not that nice to look at on a laptop screen. And actually, unfortunately, that did not very much change when I started shooting RAW files. The images that come out of this phone, well, LG is trying as hard as they can, I guess, but maybe it comes down to the lens that's just not as strong as other telephones' lenses. If you are going to go ahead and you want to leave your camera behind and basically replace it with a mobile phone, then there are definitely better options in my perspective than the LG. I don't want to repeat myself so much, so I'm just going to go ahead and show you a very comparison of a JPEG in what's details, comparing it to the RAW file. So here is JPEG, here is RAW. You see how the JPEG is very, very strongly sharpened. So that's a software thing. That is, and this sharpening is embedded into the JPEG file, so it's definitely preferable to shoot RAW files. Because then you can take care of the sharpening manually if you want to do that. It's a lot of work. It's actually a lot of work to get a RAW file to look as exactly as a JPEG, because the software inside the phone does a lot of thinking for you. It actually does a lot of clever things about darkening and brightening certain areas and using local contrast. If you want to have the same look of the JPEG file out of your RAW file, then it's actually going to be probably a 10-minute curve session that you have in front of you. Anyways, yes, the RAW files look better than JPEG files. I have this one here, which is shot with the wide-angle lens. I found out that the wide-angle lens has a higher resolution than the regular lens. Regular lens is about 3000 by 4000 pixels, whilst the wide-angle lens is about 3600 by 4000 something, I don't remember exactly. So that was surprising. Once again, of course, the main reason why I'm looking at the RAW file is details, which have been sharpened too hard. So don't want to repeat myself too much, you can just look at it and judge for yourself. I think the RAW file has a satisfying amount of details. Once again, you can look at it on your screen, send it around, that's perfect. Not necessarily to print and hang on your wall. Highlight recovery is something that RAW files should be very good at. For some reason, the RAW files all came in very bright. I had to darken them by about 2/3 of a stop to get some sort of a regular feel to them. Then we have this one here. I thought it was interesting because I remember shooting with the Samsung and with the LG phone. I was able to do 1 second exposures underground, whilst the longest exposure time I could get out of the LG was 1/8 of a second at 50 ISO. The f-stop is a 1.1 on the regular lens, I believe. Sorry, I might be wrong, but I think that's it. So that is a very light sensitive lens, which is of course very good. I wish I could have done a longer exposure time on this one, but it would have been an overexposed file. Yep, same as earlier, details have been sharpened too hard. In the RAW file there's actually a lot of noise showing up in darker environments whenever I push the file to go similar to the look of the JPEG. So that's a disadvantage, but it's not that bad. And then we have this file here, which is a backlit environment. I already mentioned the details. I can show you just so you see it actually with your own eyes. This is the RAW file, this is the JPEG file. And an interesting thing, and maybe LG is not going to like me for doing this, I shot the same photo with the iPhone 7, and I want to say that the iPhone's file compares very, very well to the, well, it is definitely capable of comparing itself to the LG file. So I'm not going to say it's better than the RAW file. That's not what it is. It has sharpening embedded into the JPEG, but it's much more subtle than the JPEG of the LG. And also the iPhone has much more detail in the sky and in the backlit environment, which is definitely preferable. Where in the JPEG everything is completely blown out. In the RAW file I was able to recover a little bit, but this is as much as I could recover comparing to the iPhone 7. Yeah, that's a 3-year-old phone, which is comparing very well to the LG.
So you've seen Marian discuss the RAW files, and his take is a little bit different. But there's something you mentioned earlier called clarity, and
yes.
What about that?
So I think there's something interesting going on in general, where the phones, the cameras inside the phones are becoming stronger, and the phones have a CPU inside compared to my Canon camera, which has like a very, very high resolution and a very high image quality, but there's no clever system inside it that's thinking about the photos I took and then making them more appealing. I think that in some cases the LG phone actually tries a little bit too hard, and inside the JPEGs you see that the phone does the sharpening like very much, but it also does something that's called clarity, and clarity is some sort of local contrast or micro contrast. There's also some local saturation. Whenever you basically increase the contrast of an image, most of the times you end up with blown out highlights or dark and too dark shadows. And the phone tries to recover a little bit, but I think it tries a little bit too hard. So basically you get some sort of like halo around some areas, and that's this clarity tool. It's in other programs it's called Lux, and it has a few different names in different programs, but it's mainly some sort of micro contrast, an intelligent micro contrast tool. Yeah, and the LG goes for it a little bit heavy.
So the question I'll ask is, should, since you aren't a fan of the JPEG, should people who have the V40 just shoot in RAW and use that, or is that something that you just hope LG will fix some of the processing? Because it seems like it's a software thing, right?
It is a software thing. I think that LG could step up the game and maybe make those photos that this camera or these cameras produce, make them more appealing, make them nicer. But just to make 100% sure that I am neutral, actually I looked at the image files from February again, where we shot the Huawei and the Samsung, and the files are just better. The Huawei and Samsung files are just better, and I think it's the lenses maybe that make them the biggest difference. It's not so much the software or the sensor itself. I think the lenses of those cameras are just better. So if you want to replace your photo camera with a phone, then I'm sorry, but I would not recommend this one. This is great, it was fun to shoot with, going into the ocean, shooting super wide angle, a lot of fun, but the image quality is just, for me, it's just good enough to look at on the screen of the phones.
All right, guys, there you have it. Marian says his final thoughts. I know those of you who are clamoring for the RAW files, he's told you his thoughts here, and maybe you might want to pick something else up, or at least if you want to enjoy the camera with some of the fun features, it's still a fun camera to use. Yes. The reason I was laughing earlier is because I am allergic to cats, and Alaska here is trying to kill me. That's all I'm going to say. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. Definitely follow Marian on Instagram. I'll have a link for his Instagram page. It is Marian Sells. Great photographer. He does a lot of fashion, lifestyle, fantastic work. And if you want to see more of these videos, let us know. We'll be doing one on the Pixel 3 XL, sorry, and one on the Huawei, and we might do an end of year roundup. So just letting you guys know, that would be very interesting to see what he thinks is the best camera
yeah, I'm curious.
This year from a smartphone. So there you have it, guys. Thank you very much, and always enjoy your entertainment.
Bye bye.